Our true crime podcast deals with sensitive issues, including some that little ears shouldn't hear. Listener discretion is advised.
This is Cam.
And I'm Jen.
And you're listening to
Our True Crime Podcast.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, Cam, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty excited. Today's our very first podcast.
Our True Crime Podcast.
I know, such a clever name, she said sarcastically.
Well, anywho, hopefully we have some good stuff and people like us.
Oh, I think so. You want to start with our first case?
Yes, let's.
Okay.
Shall we?
Let's go.
All right, so thinking about what case to cover.
Right.
In fact, it was early June. There was a man named Captain William Howard Hughes who had deserted the Air Force 35 years ago, and he was found living in California under a different name.
Wow.
Apparently, he got depressed about being in the military one day,
Okay.
withdrew over $28,000 from 19 different banks, not suspicious at all, right?
No.
And went on to, form a new name, a new life, new family, new everything.
How do you just disappear? I mean, I understand you get a little bit depressed, but how do you really just leave your life? Let's think about this. What do you have to do to leave the life as you know it right now to start a new life?
Let's see, I always wonder, what are you doing? Where are you going? But how are you going to do that? You have to break off all ties with everybody.
You can't call your mom.
Nope, no
your
mom,
best friend,
no kids.
Nothing. You just have to leave. And not only not speaking with everything, but you have to get a social security number because you can't get a job without it. Hell, you can't even get a driver's license without your social security number.
A job, which would lead to money, a car.
Right. I mean, obviously, I'm not a criminal, but I'm sure I could figure out how. But, do you go to a seedy part of town and say, hey, psst, anybody know where I can get, a social security number?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll cover that in a different one because, like I said, this disappearing thing just really intrigues me. The thing is not only do you have to become a different person on paper, you have to live that. You can't ever slip up. You can't ever divulge any past things. And then once you start living that lie, you have to stick to it.
And can you imagine how cruel for his parents, his mom? That would totally devastate me.
To
have your kid totally go and you don't know what happened to them, you don't know where they are. And, no matter what age they are, you still worry about them.
You're going to fake a death, that's illegal, or you're going to disappear, and that's heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking.
For the loved ones left behind.
I don't know. I've never come to that point in my life where I needed to.
Nor have I.
Knows? But I'm sure you can find all this information on Google if you tried hard enough.
Yeah. So anyway, this has always fascinated me big time about people that just choose to cut ties and that's it, live a new life. So that brings me to the case that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
Robert Fisher. Have you ever heard about Robert?
I've heard about him. I kind of know a little bit about his story, his background. Not really know about his background, but I kind of know a little bit. So
okay. All right.
Fill me in on the deets.
Okay, so here we go. You ready?
Look how cool I am. I said deets.
Deets, you are cool. The tote's cool.
Tote's cool.
Here we go.
Okay.
At 8:42 a.m. on the morning of April 10th, 2001, firefighters were immediately called to a natural gas explosion and fire in Scottsdale, Arizona. The house was located in the 2000 block of North 74th Place. So it was a suburb, obviously. So there were lots and lots of houses around.
Mm-hmm.
The explosion was so severe that it collapsed the front brick wall. So it knocked through the whole wall.
Those things are so scary.
It could be felt in the neighboring houses for up to a half mile in all directions. Now, a series of smaller secondary explosions occurred, believed to be caused by either rifle, ammunition, or paint cans. No. But anyway, that forced the firefighters to keep their distance, so it wasn't actually get into the house.
Right, of course.
Now, if you go to our website and look at it, you're going to see this house that is totally demolished. You can tell it was a structure, you can tell something was there, but you literally can't even really tell it was a house. It is demolished head to toe.
Those firefighters, man, they are really true heroes. Unreal.
Upon the investigation, authorities determined the blaze had appeared to be centered in the living room. Soon they discovered it was no accidental explosion, hence why we're covering the case.
Right.
The gas line from the back of the house's furnace had been pulled out and allowed natural gas to fill the house.
Okay, so then obviously, it's arson.
Obviously.
Okay, so explosion, there has to be a fire or a spark. Did they find anything that
Yeah, so what
Okay.
set off the blaze? They found a single candle that was placed in the floor and lit. Now, natural gas immediately goes to the top first, and then it fills.
Because it's lighter than air,
Yes,
like helium.
it comes down
Right.
and it fills the house.
Okay.
So by doing that, that is called a delayed fuse, and it allows the person who set it to get away. So much, so it's approximately 8 to 10 hours.
Okay, so whoever set the fire had to have some science background or understand what's going
Or
on.
maybe, I don't know, a firefighter, just saying.
Yeah. Was he a firefighter?
Well, we'll see.
Oh, geez.
Shortly after entering the smoldering ruins of the home, investigators found the charred remains of 3 individuals. Still lying in their bed, this is heartbreaking, were Mary Fisher, age 38, and her 2 children, identified as Brittany, age 12, and Bobby, age 10.
Oh, those poor babies.
Both children had their throats slit, and Mary had a gunshot wound to her head as well as her throat slit. Now, Robert Fisher is the husband, okay? He was nowhere to be found.
He's completely gone.
Completely gone.
Okay.
So, of course,
And there's only 4 people that live in that house?
4 people that live in the house.
Okay.
So immediately the family began to worry for his safety, and they were thinking that maybe he too had met with, maybe
Right.
somebody showed
Yeah,
up with a
'cause
gun
where
and
is
took
he?
him out,
I mean,
right?
their family's dead. Where's he?
But stranger yet, Mary's car was also missing. They started to debate maybe the fire at first. They thought maybe took him out and,
So the police had the theory that
they were
somebody
kind of,
came
they were
in.
just, playing with
Okay.
everything. They weren't sure.
Okay. Well, how was the family? Were they like a close-knit family? Were they?
Well, of
I
course. So the first thing we do, because we
Right.
know as crime junkies, what do? You look
You
at
blame the spouse because we learned that on Dateline.
That's
It's
right.
always the
Dateline,
spouse.
48 hours, all the
Yeah.
good stuff. You always look who is closest and what do they have to gain.
Right.
Always. So the investigators began to dive into the backgrounds of both Robert and Mary to
Mhm.
see if anything, is strange or sticks
Right.
out. Robert and Mary had been married for 16 years. Robert, a U.S. Navy veteran, started working as a firefighter.
Nice.
But suffered a back injury and had to change careers. And
Mm.
apparently this was not, he loved being a fireman, and it caused a lot of strife within the marriage.
Oh yeah.
So he went
I can
on
only
and he
imagine.
became a respiratory therapist working at the Mayo Clinic, by the way. So he
Oh.
obviously was a pretty intelligent guy,
Yeah.
had a good job. So, he also was a big hunter, fisherman. He was an outdoorsman. He had some taxidermied animals in his house,
Okay.
stuffed heads on the walls. So he,
Animal heads, right?
animal heads.
Okay.
Stuffed animals, not the baby's kind. So a quote that I came across in my research that really kind of stuck with me was from Detective John Kirkham of the Scottsdale Police Department. He was one of the investigating officers on the scene.
Okay.
And he says, quote, Robert was a very private person. Outwardly, he was perceived as a good father and a good husband, a church-going man. During the investigation, we found that Robert Fisher had a number of faces, a number of masks that he wore, end quote.
People do,
They do.
right?
I think everybody has a few skeletons and secrets in their closet.
right.
Some
Okay.
of them
Yeah.
are bigger.
But most don't kill families. But
Nope.
okay.
Okay. Yeah, uh-huh.
Okay. And he was a churchgoer.
He was a churchgoer.
Okay.
I mean,
So
he
of course.
seemed to be a, good guy
Okay.
around. However, as we all know, with cases such as this,
hmm
everything is not what it seems.
Right.
So the marriage looked to be a good one from the outside, from everybody around them had commented that it seemed to be pretty good.
Right.
However, we learned that there's soon some cracks, or should I say, infection.
Infections. What kind of what?
Yeah, it seems Robert visited a massage parlor due to that back injury and had a one-night stand with a prostitute and came home with a bit of a urinary tract infection. Oops.
Okay.
That's not
So,
good.
The massage place, was it like a true massage place, or was it one of those
Well, I don't think it's a fancy
fly by
spa
night
resort
happy
place,
time?
if that's what you're
Okay.
thinking. Yeah, I think
Yeah. Okay.
it's never mind.
Love you long time.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, he was actually pretty distraught about this, didn't know what to do. He went to his pastor. The pastor had convinced him to go ahead and admit what he did to
Mhm.
Mary.
Okay.
So he did.
That
And of
makes
course,
sense.
Mary was not too happy.
Oh.
Yeah, of course.
No.
So the pastor, they belonged to his church, and they're pretty active members. Robert was actually in the men's ministry.
Mhm.
The kids were being brought up in that church as well.
Okay.
So he followed his pastor's advice. He went to Mary. Mary was furious.
Of course. Yeah.
After calming down, she decided she wanted to try to work it out and stay together. Now, an
Okay.
interesting point to
Well,
interject here.
mhm.
They have kids, so that makes
Right.
sense.
Not easy to get over, but it's understandably
It's a little-
forgivable.
With children, it complicates. So an interesting point to interject here. Robert's parents were divorced when he was 15. And apparently this left quite an imprint on him.
Right. Well, I mean, a lot of people get divorced. My folks divorced when I was 12, and I believe yours did too.
As did mine.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Robert chose to live with his father, who later remarried, and apparently the stepmom was pretty tough on him, and he wasn't real happy with that.
Well,
But the one thing that kind of gave me pause was that he was chatting with one of his coworkers at the Mayo Clinic, and he said that he was so against divorce that he would choose suicide over divorce.
What? Suicide?
Suicide over
Seriously,
divorce.
he'd rather kill himself
Right.
than
Divorce.
divorce.
Right.
Okay. I don't understand that.
I
at
don't
all.
understand that
I don't.
either.
Mm-mm.
Okay. As a father, it was reported he was a stern figure. You know, he ran his household. He was
Right.
definitely the one in charge. But he seemed to be pretty loving towards his children.
Right.
From the research, the videos and stuff that I looked at, he was pretty loving with his children. There were a few videos that I would think a little questionable.
Really?
But there was this one that his daughter, Brittany, she was probably about 4. She had a gun, and he was singing, "Better dead than red, better dead than red, kill the commies." Now, these are his son was like 2.
Well,
carrying a gun around the house. But
different. Yeah. Okay.
so, but for the most part, he seemed pretty loving
I wouldn't
towards
do
them.
that, but that's not, to me, it's odd.
Okay. Thank you. I thought it was odd, too.
Yeah.
So it was pretty well documented that he was very controlling of Mary as well as the house.
But everybody thought they were happy.
I mean, for the outside, you know, from the outside, everybody has some problems. But Robert's mother actually confided in Mary that she was kind of worried about their relationship because she was seeing signs in Robert that was sort of indicative of her relationship with Robert's father, which, as we know, led to divorce. So I think Mary kind of started on that pattern of thinking maybe there's something better out there. Maybe there's something, something else I can
and
do.
it makes sense. It's proven that people do tend to marry.
Marry like their father, of course. Right. As a matter of fact, Mary's friends, after all this happened, came forward and said that she had recently been thinking of or planning to divorce Robert.
Oh, okay.
So,
but it wasn't known. That was just a couple of friends.
That was just friends. I mean, and in the heat of the moment or in anger, you probably say a lot of things. So that's
right.
It's hearsay.
Right.
You can't really say what they were going to say.
Right.
So when we got to take a look now. We've kind of learned a little bit about them. We got to take a look at what happened the day before the morning of the explosion. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some strange things, and I think this was interesting because I think it brings up premeditation, if he really thought about this or if it was a spur of the moment thing. Couple things make me think spur of the moment. Couple things make me think this was planned out.
Okay, so like it's a known fact that everybody believes that he
it's coming
everything.
To that because we're starting, you kind of question the people closest to you and they can't find him, but they do find some evidence.
But they never found his body.
Him.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they haven't found him to talk to.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm jumping ahead.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm anxious.
I know you are. That's okay. So I think what we want to do is, like, when somebody goes to commit such a heinous crime, like what's going through their head, okay?
Right. To kill your kids, you're
whole nother.
Yeah,
it's a whole. And to have your throat slit, and I know that's graphic, but it's also it's not a quick death, and so that's you have to live that.
Yeah,
but it's still brutal. You have to watch them. Okay, so anyway, the day before the house explosion, Robert went and changed the oil in his car, not Mary's car, the one that's missing, but his car. Okay, that's fine. That's I wouldn't think if you're thinking about disappearing, you're going to change the oil in your car, but okay.
Wow.
Another thing he did, and I've only found this in one thing, and I can't find out more information, but is that he changed and reinstalled insulation in the house. And so part of me wonders, was it to make the fire go faster? Was it to slow it down? Was it to trick the investigators as to the timeline?
Is it flame retardant?
I've looked everywhere, and I could only find that one place. Okay. So, I mean...
Yeah, that might be something to look up later and put on the website after this is all over.
I just think that's weird. During the evening hours, again, now this is the night before the explosion, Robert took his daughter Brittany to her Junior National Honor Society induction at her school.
Right.
And Mary took Bobby to his hunting classes that were being held at the church. So, pretty normal evening. At around 10 p.m., neighbors reported hearing a loud argument between Robert and Mary. They couldn't really hear what they were talking about, and they also stated that they heard more of Mary's voice and Mary's screaming. Not pain screaming, but like angry screaming towards Robert. Okay, so they knew it was coming from the house. Now here's the interesting tidbit we got here. At around 10:40, Fisher leaves his house to visit an ATM, which is approximately a mile away from the house, and they actually have a photo of him at the machine clearly taking out money.
Okay, at night.
At night, 10:40 at night.
Okay.
Okay, and their fight was between 10 and 10:30, somewhere in
Okay.
there. 10 minutes later.
So right after that, after the fight, he left and got money.
Correct.
Okay.
How much money did he take out? What would you think he'd take out?
I think, well, I don't know what he was doing. I mean, if he was planning to disappear, I would take everything possible.
Okay, interesting.
Or even if I thought my wife was going to divorce me or my husband was going to divorce me, I'd probably take everything.
Okay, so that's what I would think too.
Right.
Here's the weird part. Robert had a good job. He had lots of assets. He had 401ks, IRAs, money markets, savings accounts. He had savings accounts for the kids. So how much money did he withdraw? Only around $280.
That's it?
That's it. That's the only
Okay.
money he ever withdrew. Never touched those accounts again. Just left that money in there.
That was it.
That was it.
I understand with the IRAs and stuff, you'd have to actually go into the bank to get those cashed out. But you would think with the savings, you could access those funds through your ATM.
Correct. And you also think that explosion, the 911 call came in at 8:42. Banks usually open around 9.
Right.
He could have been there at 9 to get that stuff out. However, it probably required another signature, and that would be of Mary's to get that
Well, but it
stuff
would also
out.
be really weird if, the 911 call happens at 8:42 and you're found at the bank at 9 o'clock.
But see, they wouldn't know that yet because they weren't even in the house. They're still
That's
fighting
true.
the fire. So,
That's true.
I mean, they don't even know anybody's in there yet.
Right.
So authorities are not clear, but in the photo of him, you can clearly see Mary's car in the background. So it makes you wonder, was this before? Did he already kill them and have the house ready to go? Was he ready to exit town? Did he go do that and go back home? They don't know because obviously they can't find him to ask.
I just blanked again. Whose car did he get the oil changed in?
His own, but
he took Mary's.
Correct.
Okay.
So why would he do that?
That's weird.
I know. I got some thoughts on that.
Okay.
Of course I do.
All right.
Here's a part which I know you're going to love. He took his dog with him. Blue.
Oh, of course.
His dog was Blue. Named Blue. Black
Okay.
Lab. Named Blue.
You always take the dog.
I knew you'd love that, being
Yeah.
a dog person. We don't really know if he killed first or if he was on his way out of town or if he went back and killed them. That remains in the air because I think being a fireman, setting that natural gas thing, I think he was hoping evidence would be more hard to detect.
Like everything would just be totally incinerated.
Bones.
Yeah, but to get the bones, the temperature has to be really, really high, and it has to be high for a certain amount of time, and we learned that from Making a Murder.
Yeah, we did. Oh, we did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Has he been seen again?
Yeah. Has he been seen?
I'm glad you asked, Jen.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So after the ATM appearance, there were a few sightings that police received, but we know how many. You get tons of them, and maybe one is legit.
Right.
So a woman called and said that she and her husband were driving, and they saw a man come out of the woods, and they believed it to be Robert. But did they call the authorities right away? No. They waited till they got home. They talked about it a little bit, and then they had thought, you know what? We better call the authorities. So,
well, and I can see that happening because you just don't want to call the authorities.
And you're always going to
all
second
the
guess.
time.
I mean, what are the chances? I would do the same thing.
Right.
Then the very next day, there was a bartender at the Rye Creek Diner, and she said a couple came in. Now, this is a little bit up past Scottsdale.
Okay.
She said a couple came in, and the woman went straight to the restroom, and the man ordered a drink, and he kind of went in the corner. He was acting strange, kind of hiding his face. The woman came out. They started bickering. This was immediately in the days following.
Okay.
The next night, someone called the authorities to say someone was ringing their doorbell, and upon answering it, it was a woman who said she had just gotten into an argument with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend, who was so nice, just dumped her on the side of the road. So she wanted the phone, obviously, to call somebody.
Did they give it to her?
Of course they did.
Mm-hmm.
But after the police put 2 and 2 together, they think that was the same woman that was in the diner the night before, but they didn't get to talk to her. She got
with
the
the
phone
band.
call.
Oh, so they didn't call that day that it happened.
They didn't call the authorities. No,
Okay.
It was that evening. So, another 2 questions. Do you think Robert was having an affair? Was there somebody else there? Was this them? Did he disappear and meet this lady?
It's hard to say. I mean, we know that he's had an affair, at least a one night with a prostitute, and then with
Another
somebody
questionable
else.
one. There was
Right,
a questionable one.
Yeah, I don't see why. There's no evidence that he hasn't, or
Correct.
he didn't. Right.
He's
But there's
done it once.
Right. Exactly. So.
But the only thing that I think, maybe this is because I'm naive, but I really think once you have an affair and something that big happens, someone cracks. Somebody has to know. Girls talk. Women talk. I would tell you, right? You would tell me. Like, there's secrets that you just don't keep.
Well, especially if okay, let's just say that this was him and the girl is the girlfriend that he killed his family for and everything.
Right.
If you're having a fight with him right after this happened,
Exactly.
wouldn't you say, listen, you know,
Maybe
I'm
this
with...
isn't such a good idea.
Yeah, or, I mean, if she would have enough balls to go to somebody's house and said, you know, my boyfriend
Right.
just had a fight, he dropped me off here, I would be livid, first off. I would be so livid that I probably would say, hey, this is what he did. And
or maybe you'd be scared of him, knowing that the fate that happened to the other people.
Yeah, but if you would get the police in and
maybe that wasn't...
Hell, I'm like all for... I helped do this, but you know what? Immunity. Give me immunity. I'll tell you everything you need to know.
Of course you would. I'm never committing a crime with you.
Yeah, it's probably smart.
All right. Fast forward.
I don't normally pass the buck, but
whatever.
I do on that.
Okay, fast forward to April 20th. Now, this is 10 days after the house explosion.
Okay.
This is where it gets good.
Okay.
So a man was camping up in northern Arizona, near Young, Arizona, and he called the police stating that he saw a car that resembled Robert Fisher's Mary's car.
Right.
The Toyota 4Runner.
The one that he took.
The one he took.
Okay.
And he was located in Tonto National Park. The authorities then summoned a Ranger helicopter and did a flyover. The vehicle was, in fact, confirmed to be the missing car of Mary Fisher.
Okay.
Police can't be sure how long it had been there. It was ditched in the middle of the woods. It wasn't like on the side of the road or anything. It was literally in the middle of the woods. Again, look at our website. It's pretty rough terrain. But remember, Robert was a ex-military, so he had some skills.
Right.
So he was a hunter. He was familiar with the area. He liked to go hiking and hunting. Why do you think he took Mary's car?
I don't know. That's what bugs me. The only thing that comes into my mind is maybe Mary's car had gas in it and his didn't.
Okay.
Or his car was low on gas. Because I know that, you know, when my husband and I are saying, hey, which car should we take? Well, we'll need to get gas here, so let's take X vehicle.
Right. Right.
That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, I don't know.
Okay, now think like a criminal. Why would you take Mary's car?
They're off the scent? I don't know.
Okay, what's that going to do? When you arrive at the house and you find 3 bodies and Mary's car's gone, probably are going to think, at first, that Mary is the one in the car.
Well, you would think so, yeah.
Right? So that's gonna...
If that's what... If he really did hope that the bodies would be incinerated, you would think that he would maybe think that, right?
Yeah, right. And, you know, like stated before, he was a fireman.
Right.
So he kind of has to know what this would do. Maybe it didn't take off like it did. But obviously, taking Mary's car, they did at first think Mary was gone.
Okay.
Not him, calling about the car and stuff.
Okay.
It took a little bit to figure it out it was him. A second thing is that he drove a great big diesel truck, and it was big. So that's a little bit more obvious to the people on the street than like just a Toyota 4Runner.
Right.
So it could have been either of those, or maybe something as simple as the gas. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know.
Nobody's ever,
So anyway, as I stated, the car was located in Tonto National Forest. The area where the car was located had a bunch of caves nearby. Now, we're from Missouri.
Right. Tons of caves.
Tons of caves. So we know that you really could hide in those with no problem.
That's why the Germans settled here, because of all the caves, to keep their beer cold.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Aw, Bud.
Yep.
Thanks, Bud. Anyway, so you could go hide in the cave. You know, if you had some supplies and stuff, you could go hide in there and be okay. You know, maybe not. Now, an interesting thing is from his house, all his guns were found minus one, which they believed to be the murder weapon of Mary.
Okay.
That one was missing. Assume that he took that up there with him, so that could be, you know, he could use that to hunt animals and things like that.
Right, so they thought he went into survivalist mode.
They did. That's what they were kind of thinking at first.
He took the gun.
He took the gun.
Whatever else.
He took the dog.
Can't tell.
Right.
And he went to hide out until everything... Right, which makes
sense.
sense.
I mean, that's what they're thinking, right? Like, all right, so here's the other interesting part, Jen. And this is, I don't quite get this, and I'm hoping you're going to see something that I don't. So the police get up there. They're excited. They're going to search that car. They're going to find documents. They're going to find stuff in that car that's going to let them know.
In there. Right.
Guess what?
It's assumed that he's in there, yes.
Guess what they find? Not a single thing. That car was wiped clean. They found one fingerprint on a coffee mug, and that was Robert's. And they found some DNA on a hat in the back. That's it.
What about the dog?
The dog was not in the car. There was no fingerprints.
You're kidding me.
Nothing. So, what does that tell you? What do you think about that?
Somebody wiped down the entire vehicle.
Okay. Cool.
And I'll tell you another thing. It's really hard to get dog hair out of every place.
Amen. Amen to that.
I even sit next to my dog and I get dog hair. So he wiped everything down.
But why would you do that?
Well, he didn't want anybody
But
to
if it's
know?
his car, it should have his and Mary's stuff
should.
in it, not to mention the kids and the dogs, and it doesn't. But furthermore,
So it was detailed, basically, right?
well, I guess he did it in the woods. Maybe he was hiding somebody else's fingerprints.
Yeah.
Maybe
could
there was
be.
somebody with them. I mean, I got to think that. I don't. Why else would you do that?
Well, or what?
And if you're running off,
he was kidnapped. Part. That's if he was kidnapped, you would think that the person who kidnapped him or took him, that they would do all that. But I wouldn't expect for him to run off because I mean, obviously his name or Mary's name is on the license, the card. That's weird.
The only thing I can think is like, okay, if he's going up there to commit suicide, or if he's going up there to hike out and get out of there and live a glorious life somewhere else, why would you even bother wiping down the car unless you wanted to hide somebody else's fingerprints?
Yeah, it would have to.
Would indicate you did not do this alone.
Because the VIN number would come back to you or your wife.
Well, it was established it was their car.
Right. Exactly.
So it wasn't that. I think maybe there was somebody else in the car with them. I have to think that. I don't know why else. Why else would you do that? It's
kind of funny that the only thing was on the coffee cup. So it means that after he did everything, he took a drink and then set the coffee mug down and then left. Okay, but I guess, I mean, the main thing after you commit your murder of your entire family, and
he was thirsty.
You gotta have coffee.
A little caffeine. All right, another thing that really bothered me, and I don't quite get this either. So you're in the woods, and I know you're not a camper, but I do camp once in a while. They found human feces near the door of the car. Now there was two different scenarios. One was the human feces on the driver's seat. The other one was right outside the car.
There was two piles of crap?
No. No.
Okay.
One pile, two differing stories. Two different stories.
Okay. I was confused there for a second. Thanks.
So why you're in the woods, like you
right? Why would you go right near your car?
Right. So
unless you were held at gunpoint and they wouldn't let you go in the car, and you said, I got a
car. I don't know. It's just weird.
I couldn't imagine.
But like
that.
you wipe the car clean, or somebody wipes the car clean, but they don't happen to move that. Like what?
I mean, you can get that's weird.
The doggo. The little doggo.
And it wasn't. They knew for sure that it wasn't.
Well, they claim it was human feces. Okay.
Because I can understand the dog.
The dog, right?
Yeah.
That would make sense.
And it would look different. I
guess.
assume.
I don't know. Thanks, Jen. Visual
there.
So anyway, the other thing is the car's wiped clean. Underneath it is the doggo. He's not chained up. He's made himself a little bed, and he's kind of just down there staying.
Right.
So then we got to talk. Why would he bring his dog with him? I mean, we kind of talked about that, but he brought it to the woods.
Right.
Right.
So didn't have the heart to kill him, which is.
So then you walk off and leave him as you commit suicide.
But why wouldn't he have committed suicide in the house?
Or
if
take
he's
him
going
with
to commit
them?
Suicide, why would he
leave?
Right, but usually they do take their animals with them.
Meaning they kill them?
They kill their animals and then they kill themselves.
Well, another thing perhaps is, he went out there, he's in the woods. You could think maybe the dog would alert you to people coming around.
Right.
But also the dog would alert you to people coming around. So it's a good thing and it's also a bad thing because, it would tell you that people are coming, but it would also let the people know that somebody's there with the dog and he does not want to be found.
Right, but why go off and leave the dog?
So my other thought was, because you have a dog and I have a dog, and they like to chase things. So maybe he was out in the woods, the dog was, squirrel, off leash, started running, and he heard something and he had to get out of there. So he left, and then the dog, as they do, came back to the car and was waiting for the owner to come back. I mean, I can't figure out why he would take the dog, drag him all the way out there and do all that.
Or somebody came and picked him up.
Okay, see, and that was my other thought. So, okay, authorities go, they investigate everything, but up that terrain, I don't know.
I still wouldn't leave my dog.
No, I know you wouldn't. I know you would make them kill you before you let them have the dog. So that terrain's a little rough up there. They did search it. Then it started snowing just slightly after that. So it became very hard to fully search the way they should. And with caves, in fact, the little soccer players that were just discovered after, 10 days, 12 days, it is very hard to get into a cave and search it.
Well, and they go deep down, and if he was any type of survivalist, I'm sure he could do it.
Travel by night, sleep in the cave during the day, all that stuff.
Right.
I watch Bear Grylls. Anyway, so that brings me to my next point. So the dog not with him. What if he hiked out? What if he had, which could explain, maybe there was a second car.
Right.
Okay. These are just things that keep me up at night. There was a second car. It was wiped down because his friend.
It could have been that woman at the bar.
Could have been the woman at the bar. Could have been, who knows? And he did have a gun, Maybe he hiked out.
They never found the gun.
No, they never found the gun. Nope.
Huh.
And here's another little interesting tidbit, okay? If you're going to run away, if you're going to disappear, you have to have money. He didn't take that much. The ATMs had certain amounts that you could take out. I tried to look it up. I couldn't find it. And since then, it's gone up.
I think
it was
it's
$200 or $300.
Yeah.
It wasn't that much at first.
I don't know. At that time, I didn't have enough money to withdraw much anyway.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
All his clothes were gone from the house.
Everything?
Everything. He took his clothes. What? How do you... I mean, I know that we're women, so we have a lot of clothes and shoes.
But he took everything, like all his shoes.
No clothes of his were found in the house.
Huh. Okay.
So
interesting.
That leads me to think he's disappearing. You're gonna
exactly.
You're gonna take your clothes and then go kill yourself.
Right.
I mean, he could have changed his mind. You know what I mean? You never know.
I don't know. Okay, never mind. I don't.
What were you gonna say?
Well, I was gonna say, would I really take my clothes if I was gonna disappear?
Well, see, that's what I thought too. But you're surely not gonna take it if you're gonna commit suicide. You know what I mean?
No, because I mean,
maybe a few changes of clothes, but not.
Maybe not everything. I wouldn't clean everything out. I mean, you'd want to pack light because I don't know.
You don't know where you're going, right? If only.
No, I mean.
Only little doggo Blue could talk.
Poor doggo.
We'd know. Just like.
Poor baby.
Think about all the crimes that would be solved if animals could talk.
I know.
O.J. Simpson.
Just think of all the secrets your dogs would tell.
So he either went on there out in the woods in a cave, shot himself. Okay.
And they've never found it.
And they never found it. Never found a skull, a body, and there's coyotes and scavengers out there that could be doing that. Or maybe he hiked out. Somebody was waiting for him, and he's living the high life in Mexico or Bolivia or wherever he might be.
Unreal. Still wouldn't leave my dog.
I know you wouldn't. Still. Okay, so, this case was featured on America's Most Wanted as well as Unsolved Mysteries. So it's got some stuff behind him. So the police obviously have received leads from everywhere, as they always do. For instance, there was a couple in Guatemala. They were down there vacationing, taking, touristy pictures. And if you know me, I like me a good selfie, so I'd be taking selfies all over the place. And so they were taking a picture of themselves, and there was a man in the background. And upon taking the picture, he came up. He was very angry. He demanded that they give him the camera because he did not want to be photographed. Well, they thought that was really weird, and they kind of also thought he looked familiar. So they went and they determined that they were pretty sure it was Robert Fisher. So they immediately called the police. Well, by this time, he's long gone. But that's one sighting.
That's weird that somebody would want the camera.
If you don't want to be photographed, if you're hiding from somebody, that totally makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd be suspicious.
Well, see, me, on the other hand, I'd be jumping in that photo, giving them my address and telling them to send me the photos, just like I did at the Keith Urban concert, but that's another story. Okay, so, yep. So anyway, like I said, it was featured on America's Most Wanted. That was around August 2001. Now, a week after that was featured, a call came in saying, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Quote, "This is Robert Fisher. I'm glad I killed the bitch, and you will never find me," end quote. Authorities were unable to determine if that was, in fact, Robert Fisher. Now, personally, I don't think Robert Fisher would chance that. I mean, if he went to all that trouble...
If he totally disappeared and there was no trace of him, I really doubt that he'd call the police and say... Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know. He's a control freak. Maybe he wanted that little ha-ha. Maybe he...
You don't know. I mean,
and this was after?
This was a week.
The TV show?
Yes, a week after, which I thought was weird too. Like, it was a week after, so it wasn't like the same night or anything.
And people are such jerks that they would do that.
They totally would. Or kids thinking it's funny, teenagers.
Right.
All right. So again, there was a lead in 2004 that Canada was holding a man who they believed could be Robert Fisher. They called the authorities. He had similar markings as Robert Fisher. He had a missing front tooth, a scar on his lower back, but the fingerprints did not match. Now, I mean, everybody thinks it's him, could be him. Well, maybe the fingerprints, they burned him off. I doubt all that.
You can tell. My dad, when he was early 20s, worked for the FBI in the fingerprint department, and he said that you could tell if fingerprints were burned off,
manipulated,
and you would be able to. I mean, I'm sure that the FBI or the police or whatever would say, yes, it looks like these prints have been burned.
I totally agree. I think it was just a flip. And I don't know. I think that
how many people are missing a tooth? How many people have back surgery?
And they're wanting that, you know what I mean? So this brings us to pretty much the end of the case, but I wanted to talk about premeditation. What do you think about that? Do you think this was premeditated?
Oh, definitely
You do?
premeditated. Yeah.
See, I disagree.
I don't know. You don't think
I don't think it was. No.
Why?
I think, why would you change the oil in your car? If I'm going to be doing something this heinous, I don't think I'm going to be changing the insulation and changing the oil in my car the day before.
Maybe he had set up an appointment to change the oil and it would look suspicious.
He did it. He changed it himself at his house with his hands.
I don't know. I mean, why? So you thought, I don't know.
Okay, so honestly, let me do this. Okay. So I think it was not premeditated. I think it was in crime of passion. I think something happened. I think they got in that fight. I think he was like, I am done. And he packed his bag. Maybe he packed his bag, had it. I think from the time of the fight, which was anywhere between 10 and 10:30, depending, witnesses make mistakes. And then that bank video at 10:40, I don't think he could have packed everything and got out of that house and did all that he had supposedly done. I think he might have went to get the money, had something else in mind, then went home. I think he probably went to bed. I think the wife went to bed. He laid there, sat there, whatever, and just decided that this is what he was going to do.
I know, but if you had to pack up, and granted, you're a woman, so you say, but granted, how long would it take you to pack up your stuff?
Well, I got to be honest. I got 36 pairs of shoes alone.
Right.
And
no,
I can't choose
exactly. But how much would it take how long would it take for you to pack your husband's stuff to get every trace of him to get all of his stuff out of the house?
No, it was just clothes. So his other stuff was there. It was clothes and a gun, basically. And then he went to and his dog.
Right.
So, I just think, I don't know. I think he went home and he sat about it and said, this is it. I think maybe that the fear of Mary divorcing him got to him and he was just like, this is it. I'm done.
But he said that he would commit suicide. He didn't say that he'd kill his wife.
Well, lots of people say that. And then when it really comes to it, they can't do it. But that's, and maybe he did commit suicide. Maybe that was the whole thing. But why would he take his clothes? Why would you get money? You don't need money if you're going to go kill yourself in the forest. Or maybe
why wouldn't he kill himself in the house?
And that's another thing, you murder-suicide. That would make more sense too.
Right. See, and I kind of think it would have to be premeditated because I think maybe he knew that his wife, Mary, was contemplating divorce.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm. So he might have known this. So he might have thought, once again, that, he said suicide, but I'll do better. I will kill her and the kids. Mm-hmm. And he planned it for a couple weeks.
I just don't think, why wouldn't you take out more money?
I don't know.
I mean, $281 is not.
Maybe he didn't wanting the fire to burn so hot that everything was disintegrated, and the police to say that his body was in there. I mean, I know that doesn't make sense, but you're going to find a body. I don't know.
And even he's gone. It's obvious that
completely disappeared.
And if he was innocent, why wouldn't he come forward and say, I did not do this? I was here. But no. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe there was an intruder. Or maybe...
I don't think so.
I don't know. But he's gone. He's completely gone. Does the FBI have anything?
I'm glad you brought that up, Jen. I'm glad you brought that up. Robert Fisher is on the FBI's 10 most wanted list.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
You got to do some stuff to make that. The agents say that they believe that he is alive and well out there. Now, we all know, as crime junkies, that that's code talk for they know something.
They do know something.
But they can't tell us.
Something. Right. Well, why would they?
There's also a $100,000 reward for information leading to him.
Okay.
So what we do know about Robert Fisher is he does have a few characteristics
that we could watch out for.
That can't be changed. We all have those things.
Right.
Like you talk to anybody. Anyway, that's another story.
Because that's bad. Okay.
No, you talk to a brick if you think it'll talk back. Anyway,
get lonely.
He has a strange walk due to that back injury he had.
Right.
He kind of walks with it's just like a weird swagger.
Okay.
He chews tobacco, or he did, but that could change. He likes to hunt and fish. So those are,
most of the Midwest.
You meet a friend and he kind of looks like Robert Fisher and he wants to go hunting. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe you might want to think about that. I think one of the things that you can't change is being a controlling person. And he was...
That would take years of therapy.
Yes. It was said to be... He was very controlling in his work life. in his marriage, in his friendships, in his hunting, everything. He was very controlled. He was very deliberate.
All right, so if you are dating a man who is controlling with a swagger that chews tobacco and hunts, you might want to call the FBI.
You might want to.
Oh, and missing a tooth, right?
Well,
Isn't he
yeah,
missing a
and
tooth?
he's got a gold tooth,
Yeah.
too. But, I mean, all
Or
that
they
can be
think
fixed or changed.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. A crime of this magnitude, somebody has to know something.
They have to know
Sooner
something.
or later. I mean, but that's me and you as talkers. Like, we talk. I would be the first one to police and say I did it. I couldn't live with that.
I couldn't live with it either. And I couldn't know that somebody did that without telling somebody. I really couldn't. I'm the type of person that finds $1 and has to return it back to the owner. I
Right?
feel guilty.
Okay, I don't feel guilty about that.
Well, I know.
I stop at like the 20
Money
mark.
hungry woman.
That's right.
Yeah.
After 20, I'll
No,
return it.
I mean, somebody's got to know. Somebody has to know. Okay, so since this is kind of like your pet case,
It's
and
one
you
of
have
them. One
right.
of many.
and you have all this information about him and the case and everything, what is your speculation about what happened? What do you think
Happened.
actually happened that night and afterwards?
I think what happened is Robert was realizing that this marriage wasn't going to work out. I think he came from his parents divorced as a child. I think that he was so hard on himself. He was had to be perfect, wanted everything in order. I think he saw this coming to an end, and he would not have that. You know, it's hard to believe people do this, but they do. It's also hard to believe people would disappear for years, but they do. D'Angelo, Golden State Killer, people can fade out and just disappear and then show back up, and you're shocked. You can't believe it. I think he sat there and stewed over it, and I think he had had enough. So I think he went and killed the children first. Then he killed Mary. He slit both the kids' throat. He also slit Mary's throat, but then put a bullet in her head. One officer, one of the things that I saw, said that was his final FU to Mary. I'm not so sure about that. I think it was more like he just wanted to make sure she was gone too. She is an adult, would be harder to kill. Obviously, if he did this, he is pretty callous and cruel, so maybe it was a sign or a note, if you will, that he's leaving people. I think he got in the car. He did take his clothes. He did take his dog. I think it's weird that he left his dog behind. So I think he either got out in the woods, and I think he thought he was going to escape. Maybe it was harder. His gun's never been located. Even if they didn't find a body, you know, metal takes a long time, if at all, to deteriorate. They've never found that. So I kind of believe he's out there. I have a hard time thinking that you would just totally disappear. If you would commit suicide out there, I think something would be found.
All right. And do you think that he disappeared by himself, or the witnesses, and we all know about witnesses, they're not even witness. They
Right.
just say that they thought
Right.
they saw him with another woman. Do you think that was him?
Normally I would say that I thought he disappeared by himself. But why wipe down the car? I
Yeah.
don't get that.
don't
Nobody
either.
has a clean car, especially with kids. Dog hair, it's just crazy. And
Right.
it's, DNA is so minuscule. And a piece of dandruff, any little tiny thing in the car. And maybe the police, maybe they missed something. That happens a lot. But
Right.
they're
not infallible. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't understand the whole dog
why
part,
would you
but
take your
that's-
dog?
right.
That's why this case bothers me. There's just so many what ifs and whys. Like, why?
There's no
why did he
answers.
do that?
There is, there's evidence of what happened. There's remains. There's forensics, but there's
why?
no answers.
There's no why.
No.
So anyway, this is one of the
technically
cases.
there's not even a motive. Besides,
No,
the
he
neighbors
it
said that
wasn't
there was
for
a
money.
fight,
And there was, but it's
and it's all speculation because
Right.
nobody is around or alive.
correct.
So he's just gone.
So
All right.
just keep a lookout
interesting
for
case.
Robert Fisher.
All right. Well, that was a bumpy ride for sure.
It's one of those cases that I always think about.
Yeah. Unreal.
Also, let me just say, there's a documentary on Amazon, Where is Robert Fisher? It's got some good information. One thing I did want to add that really kind of broke my heart, when this first happened, Robert's biggest supporter, one of his biggest supporters, was Mary's dad, so his father-in-law. And he said that he just couldn't believe my Robert would do this, that he missed him terribly,
That's
and he missed
heartbreaking.
Robert almost as much as he missed his daughter.
Ugh.
Well, poor Bill Cooper never lived to see what happened at the end. He did pass away in 2009.
That's a shame.
And apparently towards the end, he sadly did start to realize that maybe Robert wasn't who he had originally thought.
Unreal. All right. What a weird case.
What a
It
twisted
really
tale.
is.
I know.
It is very
I know.
strange.
Thanks for joining us. I can't wait to hear what's up on the next True Pinecast or Crimecast.
Oh, Jesus. That was scary. All right. Well, good case.
Thanks.
Congrats on the first episode.
Woohoo!
All right. If you guys need any more information on where we came up with the details of this Robert Fisher case, you can find it at www.ourtruecrimepodcast.com. And while you're at it, you're on social media, go ahead, and we're on Twitter with the @ Our True Crime Pod.
You can find us on Facebook.
And hey, and if you liked this, go ahead and like and subscribe, and we'll keep you up to date on everything else that we have coming up.
And our biggest fan might get a free muffler, like for your hands to go skiing or something.
Buy a Coke.